Hey, welcome back. It's James at JG3 Reviews, and today we are going to do an ink test. And what ink test? Well, I mean, you can see it right there, can't you? Probably on the thumbnail too. It is Pelikan's 4001 Dunkelgrün, or dark green. This is one of my mainstay inks. I guess you could call it an evergreen ink for me because I use this one pretty much all the time. There's almost always a pen floating around that has this ink in it. This is my second bottle. I'm about halfway through this one. I use it fairly often. And I'm going to tell you straight up front, if I could only get one bottle of green, this may very well be it. It's very reliable, well behaved on most papers, and easy to wash out of a pen. It really is just a terrific ink. And on top of that, it is not really an expensive ink either. Now, the pen today will be the Pelikan N200. This is one that I got off an eBay estate sale. A really, really great deal, and probably one of my best, if not the best, used pen buy ever. Just a fantastic little pen with a medium steel nib and the writing experience that you would expect from a Pelikan like this. So if you're new to the channel, here's what we're going to do. We are going to see how this ink performs on several different papers of various kinds. We'll do dry times. We'll do a water fastness test. We'll do an ink swatch, and I will show you what happens when you put this ink through a chromatography test. That's one of the fun things where you see it break down all the base colors that make a green ink in this case. So let's jump right on in. So the dry time and the swatch and the water test, I am going to show you on this paper. This is Clairefontaine paper. It's a French paper. It's a coated paper. Writes very smoothly. Most inks perform on it very well. And depending on where you live, it's a nice, affordable paper. I really like it. A lot of fountain pen enthusiasts really like Clairefontaine. So first, as we look at this paper, you can see that this ink does have some really nice shading on some papers, and Clairefontaine is one of them. You can see how it gets very light in the downstroke of that P, but then the E, the L, the K, the N on those downstrokes, you get this richer, darker shading, and that's not something that when I first bought this ink back in, I think the first bottle was probably 2019, 2020. I didn't expect that. I just expected green. And so that for me was a bit of a bonus. You can see it has nice saturation in the smear test here and just performs well. You don't see any feathering or issues like that. And this is both the ink and the paper, but you're not going to see any misbehavior on the other side of the paper too. So it is an ink that you can definitely write on both sides of the page on most papers, but your mileage will vary, and we may see that as we go through these various papers. The next paper I have here is from India, and this is Ayush paper. A little hard to get here in the US, but if you see it, just know a really, really nice paper. You can see that is more of an ivory or a cream-colored paper, which I kind of like, especially with certain inks. And here again, you see shading, not quite as much as on the Clairefontaine, but you do still see shading, and you can see it here in the square block ink sample. And once again, you're not going to see any misbehavior. And again, Ayush paper is excellent, and it's a thicker paper, and so you usually don't see inks go through, but it's not impossible. Let's go to another really common paper in the fountain pen world. This is the Rhodia Dot Grid. And let me just say, one of my favorite notebooks, just because it is a top spiral. Paper people, please, more top spirals. I know the left-handers in the world would like that, and I'm not one, but I would still really, really like that. So anyway, you can see here too, you get some of that shading, same kind of behavior. It's kind of in between the Ayush and the Clairefontaine in that regard, and very similar performance, great performance, and nothing coming through on the other side for that green. Let's go to another really common paper in offices all over at least the US and maybe in other places as well. This is Hewlett-Packard HP copy paper, and it actually does perform pretty well with a lot of fountain pen inks. So here is the Pelikan Dunkelgrün. You can kind of get a preview of other inks I'm going to do in the next couple of months. And here too, you still get shading. You still get really nice vibrance of that green, and you still do not get too much coming through, but you do get some. You can get a preview there. You do get a bunch from this diamine ink, but Here on this Pelikan ink, you do get just a little bit of not really bleed through. It doesn't come over on this other side of the page, but it is coming through on the back side of the page. So we've definitely got ghosting. Let me look again. Yeah, no real feathering. And that's pretty good. Copy paper can be really bad about feathering, but this one is pretty tame, and this ink does a great job on it. Now, maybe a less common paper, but one that should become more common. And still, I got to thank a viewer for mentioning this in the comments, probably, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago now. But this is Iroful, I-R-O-F-U-L, Iroful paper. It's from Japan, and if you're familiar with Tomoe River, it is similar in performance. It's not the same, but it's similar. And I really like this paper. It's generally pretty affordable. It's available like this in loose sheets or in some notebooks. But let me tell you something. Pens, nibs, love this paper. Various inks with shading and shimmering and sheening properties. Love this paper. And the Pelikan is one of those inks that does. You can see that perhaps on the shading, this may be where it performs the best in terms of the extent of the shading. Very light here, very dark on the K, and just a lot of variation as you go along. And there are just a few, I'm going to say spots, speckles of sheening. They're kind of hard to see on camera, I know, but they're there. Like here at the cross, by the time you go three times across in the same spot, you can get just a little bit. Otherwise, shading is great and the performance is great, and no issues on the other side. Next, we have a dot grid spiral that's available at Walmart here in the US. It's made in India and is very affordable. Still just $2 and change for one of these notebooks. And it's a full-size notebook. Really, really good. It's not going to have as smooth a texture as, say, Rhodia or the Clairefontaine, but it is excellent paper, and inks behave on it quite well. And you can see here that the Pelikan does here as well. And you do get that shading. You get a bit of a thinner line. It's a bit of a crisper line than on those other papers. No feathering, which makes that crisp line look really good, but you do still get some nice dark shading. Look at the downstroke of that D. You really do see that shading as you go across there quite well. And of course, no issues on the other side. And then we come to one of my other favorite bargain papers, just a cheap spiral. Sometimes I'm just writing notes or I'm outlining a lesson that I'm going to teach. I do that by hand first before going to the computer, and I do that on these cheap spirals a lot of the time. So I fill these up like crazy. They're very inexpensive. This is Pen & Gear. It's from Walmart, and it's made in Vietnam. And if you don't know it already, Vietnam tends to make pretty fountain pen friendly papers. So here again, good behavior. Here again, light and dark shading, no feathering, no issues. And on the other side, no problems. There's not an ink here that has bled through yet. So that's pretty impressive. And then last but not least, this is about a 2 or 3 year old ink sample. Maybe when I first got the bottle and I wrote and swatched the ink. This is Tomoe River, old school Tomoe River, and very dark. This was with a glass dip pen, so it was really, really wet. So it wrote quite dark. You don't really get as much shading variation because it's just all really dark. You can start to see it as the pen starts to dry over here on the word Germany, but you can best see it. This is a 3-pass. It looks like a 2, but this is a 3-pass swatch of the ink. And these are the same different shades that you see in the writing on those other papers. And as you can see, no problems on the other side. All right, before we do our swatch, let's talk about the bottle. This is a very familiar, very classic bottle. There are other German pen makers that have pretty much the exact same one, but with a different cap and label. Not because Pelikan makes their inks or the other people make Pelikan's inks, but because this is just a very traditional ink bottle. You can tip it over once it gets down to a certain level and do that. That helps a little bit. I won't say that with a lot of pens it helps a whole lot. There will be a time when you will have to possibly fill a cartridge or converter pen with, say, a syringe, or you can get an ink miser and put it in there. Getting the last drop, it can be a little bit difficult, but there are ways. So it's a good bottle, and it's a classic bottle. It's neither the worst nor the best. Kind of the middle. I'm going to say it's a middle-of-the-pack bottle. Do love the Pelikan logo on that cap. Looks really cool. And as I said, it does have a nice wide opening so that you can easily get a pen in there at an angle. We're going to do this swatch. We'll do 3 passes. So the first pass, bet you knew that. Then we'll do a second pass and a third pass. While that swatch dries, let's do our other dry times. First, we will be doing 5. I'm going to skip 10 and go to 15 because I just accidentally wrote that there. I really don't like to do 5, 10, and then 15. So we'll do 5, 15, 30, and 60 and see how that goes. Timekeeper will be my trusty Addie's Dive with a Seiko movement today. 5 seconds, not quite dry, but not too bad. 15 seconds. It is nearly there. Let's do 30. All right, 30 seconds, and that's dry. I don't even think we need to do 60, about 30 seconds. So that is a very decent dry time. And this is a very much a general use ink. And so you're going to want something that dries quickly like that. And very good to know. Now, some of you came, especially for the water test. Some of you really like these water tests. So let's try it out. Let's see. Will this ink stand up to the spilled coffee? Will it stand up to your Diet Coke running all over the place? Well, Diet Coke would be a different test, wouldn't it? I don't know if that would compare. Maybe that would be an interesting ink test someday to run. Does Diet Coke eat the paper too? Let's see. Put a few, several, plenty drops on there. I'm going to let that sit for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back. All right, that's sat a couple of minutes. I'm going to dab this, and we will see what remains. All right, so we can see all of this. The water is still there. The grid is still there. The word test is there. You can definitely recover what you wrote after you have dried off your mess. Water fastness is, not perfect, but it is decent for a general use everyday ink, which this is intended to be. So let's run it down. The bottle is, again, a 30 milliliter bottle. The typical price, MSRP right now, is around $14. However, I've never paid that. The most I've seen it for, where I typically buy my ink, is about $9.50. I bought this for $8 back in 2023. Of course, most things have gone up since then, but you can still get it at that price if you just watch and hunt around and are patient. So it can be a very affordable ink. It does vary, seems like, on Amazon especially, whether it's blue, black, green, red, what that price will be. The blue tends to be really inexpensive among the different colors, but green, easy to find and is affordable. Again, I've never paid that high cost. It is made in Germany, and thankfully, they make their inks better than I made my E. I sneezed or something right at that moment. You could hear probably why that would be. Anyway, some of you have been waiting for this. I know that you're anxious to see it. This is the Chromatography. And what you see is right here where I drew the line, you see where the black ink that is the base of this ink and gives it its darkness in that dark green has stayed behind just as it did in our water fastness test. And then you have really a pretty long blank spot. That's interesting. And then you get yellow and blue, because yellow and blue makes green, right? Really vibrant sky blue right there before you get to the edge, and then a nice crisp dark blue edge. So it's kind of what you would expect, right? In order to get the dark green and some more water fastness, you've got that black base, and then yellow and vibrant blue makes green. Great ink. Really love it. Highly recommend it. Just a terrific everyday green ink. And as you can see, now that that is dry, you get that real good variation in the swatch. You really do get from this medium green all the way to this very dark green in your writing. I do definitely out of this pen and on papers like the Clairefontaine. So there you go. Highly recommend it. If you have any questions, be sure and ask them in the comments. Share what your impressions are. And as always, I like to know, so what is your favorite green ink? This is how sometimes I find a new favorite, or if you've got a favorite new paper, also really good to know. With that, thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, for joining the channel. And also, as always, God bless you and hope you have a wonderful week.